Hi there, very warm welcome. Good morning to all our viewers. You're watching Market Cafe on ET Now. This is Priyanka Uppal along with me, Shriyansi. Shriyansi, looks like a booster shot has come in, at least on a temporary basis. Trump has announced to delay the tariffs on Mexico and Canada for 30 days. US market, they closed off lows. In fact, Asia Pacific market, GIFT Nifty is indicating a strong and a good start. Dollar index though paired some gains, but then overall it was a good news. Shriyansi, we get all the news in next 1 hour and the key stocks to track. But what happened in US was actually a very volatile session yesterday.
Absolutely volatile, just about sums it up when we take a look at the trading session, because you do have the major averages that made a striking turnaround after that initial global sell-off. That is something that we saw coming in, because at its session low on Monday, you did have the 30 stock Dow that fell more than 600 points or nearly 1.5%. That was after Trump had signed an order over the weekend coming in to impose 25% tariffs coming in on Mexico and Canada, plus a 10% levy coming in on China as well. Now, investor sentiment, of course, turned around on Monday afternoon. Then that is when Trump said that his duty on Mexican goods would be paused for 1 month, like Priyanka mentioned earlier as well. And the major averages, of course, ended Monday well off their lows coming in, but they still booked losses. So when I take a look at the 30 stock Dow, that's the one that slipped just about 0.3% thereabout. S&P 500 then fell 0.8% as well, and the Nasdaq Composite is the one that dropped 1.2%. So definitely a volatile trading session coming in on the back of that flip-flop coming in as far as the entire tariff trade war is concerned. Of course, you did have fears coming in of retaliation from all of these countries after that trillions of dollars of trade. They've also talked about how they're going to be retaliating, and Trump has taken possibly cues from that and come back with this rhetoric where he's saying that he's going to be pausing duty on Mexican goods for 1 month. That is the update coming in. That was something that we had been very closely tracking, at least when it comes to the US markets as well. And when you take a look at what else is there to track, you of course have a huge earning week that awaits investors. So I'm talking about Alphabet, PepsiCo that are on the docket, and you do also have Amazon and Eli Lilly. Those are among the names that are going to be reporting later this week, so keep an eye on those earnings as well. But yes, lots of cues to track, and there's also on the economic front the job openings and the labor turnover survey coming in for December. Definitely something that we're going to be watching out for. But volatile day coming in for crude as well.
Absolutely, for crude as well. And look at the move, the kind of move Bitcoin, cryptocurrency. They reversed their losses, but let's first understand how did oil prices react. Oil prices edged up. It was, of course, a volatile session on Monday for oil prices also, and now they have managed to close at a 1 month low. And this was majorly on the expiration of a higher price contract. Now, Brent crude futures for April, for the delivery, that one rose by 29 cents, nearly 0.4%. And this is from where that contract closed on Friday to settle at $75.96 per barrel. If you talk about US West Texas Intermediate crude futures, they were also flaring high by 63%, nearly 0.9%, settled at $73.16 per barrel. And this was the lowest close since January 2. But you talk about gold, that one hit record high yesterday. Of course, that had spurred the safe haven demand. You talk about Bitcoin, that one reversed the earlier losses. Now Bitcoin has topped $101,000 after US delays the tariffs on Mexico and Canada.
Well, absolutely. That's something that we're looking at, and that's very important to track. But let's also take a very quick look then and what else we should be keeping an eye on now. I've already mentioned the global earnings coming in from Alphabet, PepsiCo, Pfizer and PayPal as well, but let's also take a look at the earnings that we should be looking at back home. Then you do have Titan as well as Asian Paints reporting the numbers, so keep an eye on those counters. Other than that, Happiest Minds, the board is going to be discussing a scheme of arrangement, so keep an eye on that one as well. It's the last day to buy shares to be eligible for interim dividend for Mars Financial as well as Sona BLW as well. So both of those counters will remain in focus. In terms of other events, then you do have the Israeli PM who's going to be meeting with President Donald Trump. So even that meeting is going to be in focus. And it's the second hearing that's scheduled for the impeached South Korean president. So even that on the global front is going to be something to watch out for, but lots to watch out for on the global front.
Absolutely. Let's track the global stories. And of course, the top story this hour is, of course, the kind of move which has come in from US President Donald Trump, which has suspended slew of tariffs on both Canada and Mexico, agreeing to a 30-day pause in return for border concessions. Both Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and even Mexican President has said that they had agreed to bolster border enforcement efforts in response to Trump's demand to crack down on immigration and even the drug smuggling. That would pause 25% tariffs due to this take effect on Tuesday for 30 days. However, no such negotiations have emerged for China, at least for now, which faces across the board tariffs of 10%. A White House spokesperson has in fact said that Trump would not be speaking with Chinese President Xi Jinping until later in the week. On the flip side, Trump warned he might increase tariffs on Beijing further. China has called fentanyl America's problem and said it would challenge the tariffs at the World Trade Organization and take other countermeasures, but also left the door open for talks.
Well, absolutely. And speaking of talks, then there's a lot that is happening on the Federal Reserve front, shifting focus to the Federal Reserve and commentary then coming out where officials are now arguing that policy uncertainty over the outlook for prices calls for slower interest rate cuts than otherwise. So in terms of commentary coming in, you do have Boston Fed President Susan Collins, who said that the broad-based tariffs announced will impact pricing action, in fact, in the US, not just for final goods, but select intermediate goods as well. In fact, she added that little modern experience on how mega tariffs impact the economy makes it hard for the Fed to know exactly how big or long-lasting the effects are going to be, noting that it is also possible that the central bank could even shrug off a one-time increase in inflation tied to the tariffs. Meanwhile, you do have commentary coming in from other officials as well, because there's Chicago Fed President Austin Goolsbee, who said that very lack of clarity requires a go-slower approach on interest rate cuts. In fact, he did not repeat his recent mantra voiced as recently as last week that rates will need to come down a fair bit over the next year given progress on bringing down inflation and the goal of keeping the economy then at full employment. In terms of other commentary coming in, there's Atlanta Fed President Raphael Bostic, who's warned that his business contacts were planning to pass through any rising costs from the tariffs. Additionally, he also said that one has to wait it out and see how the tariffs then play out.
All right, with this, we stay for a short break here. When we come back, we get you the cues from the Asian market. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. You're watching Market Cafe on ET Now. Now let's get you the cues from the Asian market. Of course, the kind of the relief shot what markets have got. This has clearly spurred some optimism in the markets across the board. In fact, Asian markets, the way they're faring at the moment, Nikkei is up by more than 1.5%, 1.6% the gain, more than 600 points of recovery we've seen on Nikkei. It has opened with a good start. In fact, we're tracking at the same time the broader index topics. That one has also advanced by more than 1%, 1.3% where it is trading at the moment. But the South Korean market is soft right now. Kospi has slipped into red. However, it did start with a strong cues, but now it has slipped into the red. Talking about Australia, ASX 200, that one was also trading with a positive bias, up by more than nearly 0.4%. And at the same time, GIF Nifty is also indicating a good start. Maybe we are in for a strong start, a gap up of 100 points nearly. So lot to track on from the Asian market cues today for sure. Chinese market was closed for the lunar year. Good set of holidays they get actually the whole year.
Well, absolutely, yes. It is a very good set of holidays that they in fact get. But let's also take a look at the lineup that we have for you on the market. Then at 9:20, we'll be in conversation with Swanand Kelkar, who's the managing partner at Breakout Capital Advisors, to decode the markets and the setup that he's seeing emerge for the markets. At 9:40, then to also discuss the China Plus One opportunity, Suyog Kotecha, CEO and Executive Director at Aarti Industries, is going to be in conversation with us. And at 10 a.m., then B. Prasanna, Group Head at Global Markets, ICICI Bank, is going to be talking to us about trade wars and macros and what he pencils in terms of the roadmap for both of these. But moving on, then 10:20, Prasanna Kumar Motupalli, who's the CMD at NLC India, is going to be talking to us about the earnings for the company and to decode earnings of Alembic Pharmaceuticals at 10:35. Then Shaunak Amin, who's the Managing Director, will also be in conversation with us. So I'll keep an eye on all of these interesting conversations that we have lined up. A power-packed lineup right there, Priyanka.
Absolutely, power-packed lineup going ahead. But with this, we stay for a short break here. But
welcome back. Thank you so much for staying tuned in. Well, let's shift focus then to the political landscape then. And leader of opposition in the Lok Sabha and Congress MP Rahul Gandhi hit out at the Modi government during the debate on motion of thanks to President's address and alleged that as a country, India had handed over the organization of production to China. In fact, he also said that though he believed that Make in India was a good idea, he claimed that the scheme had failed despite the Prime Minister's attempts. In fact, he also added that if India wants to be first about AI, it has to first answer the question, what data is going to power that particular AI? Let's go across and listen in then to what he then had to say when it comes to the debate in the Lok Sabha.
The Prime Minister proposed the Make in India program. I think a good idea. We saw the statues, we saw the functions, we saw the so-called investment, and the result is right in front of me. Manufacturing fell from 15.3% of GDP in 2014 to 12.6% of GDP today. That is the lowest share of manufacturing in 60 years. I'm not even blaming the Prime Minister, because I think it would not be fair to say he didn't try. I could say that the Prime Minister tried, and I think conceptually Make in India was a good idea, but it's pretty clear that he failed. In China, the consumption data is owned by China, but in India, companies like Google, companies like Facebook, companies like Instagram, X, they own our consumption data. So if India wants to talk about AI, it has to first answer the question, what data is going to power that AI? And the answer today is India does not have that data. Neither does India have production data, neither does India have consumption data. We have handed our consumption data to the big American companies, and the production data we don't have anyway.
okay, that was Rahul Gandhi making his point in the parliament. But moving on, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, in an exclusive interaction with the Times Network Group editor Navika Kumar, discussed the budget maths and spoke about her fiscal deficit plans and government's stand on GST rationalization. Listen in.
For projected 25, 26, 4.4, right? What is my number given for capital expenditure to the GDP? Fiscal deficit is deficit on the GDP. Now, what is my capital expenditure? Capital expenditure is 4.3% of my GDP. 4.4 for the fiscal deficit, 4.3 is this one. What does that mean? My borrowing, which is my fiscal deficit, goes for capital expenditure, asset creation. That's the way I'm going. And it's also the way in which I'm going, so that my 26, 27 onwards, my focus will be on reducing debt to GDP. I'll keep an eye on my fiscal deficit, but debt to GDP, because there was a committee under N.K. Singh, long time back, which said your borrowing should come down to 50% at least. 60 for the central government, 40 for state governments, a different combination. I am committing myself, which I said in July budget, that I'll bring it down to 50% level by 2030. I've given a path, glide path for it. I've given a clear roadmap to say how I'm going to achieve that. So equally, there are measures being taken to make sure your debt position is improved. You're not going to burden the future generations, but if you're borrowing, you'll borrow it for quality expenditure, for creating assets.
Let me ask you about the question that many people are asking, that you promised 11 lakh crores for capital investment. The revised estimates show that only 10 lakh crores were spent. You've again pegged it at 11.2 lakh crores. The question is, that you might put it there, but actual capital investment is not taking place, public expenditure is not taking place, the slowdown, signs of slowdown in the economy are there to see. All of this, does it worry you?
If I know the reason and say this, I'll be happy. I know the reason, I'll tell you. Elections happened in 24. Quarter 1 and quarter 2 suffered because of that, because administration couldn't push the capital expenditure allocations which have been given. Even in spite of the elections, even in spite of 2 quarters getting affected, in comparison to the target of 11.11, we've touched 10 at least. And we'll make up one more. You have a couple of days more, few days before the year ends. I mean, whole March is there. Despite that, we have said the coming year we will give 11.2. That's not a shortfall, that's not a reduction. It is still growing, right? Compared to the RE, it's 10.2% more.
You think the growth slowdown will be addressed?
Of course.
So you think it's a temporary blip? Are you still convinced?
Because elections had come in the way of regular government expenditure towards capital assets. Group of ministers have almost done the work of rationalizing the rates. I had gone through the details, and in fact I did say this to some of the Congress and non-Congress finance ministers, that we can do more in it. Meaning, the rationalization was not just to bring the rates down. Rationalization was also to make sure that where you have leave 0, 5, 10, 5, 12, 18 and 28. We can drop one of the rates, 18 or 12 or whatever, and move those to the closest possible rate, because pre-GST, if you compare with current GST, where we could tax on an average 15% at the rate of 15% on any item, we have gradually brought it down to 11%, meaning before GST, whatever rate prevailed, if we had to continue at the same thing, we could have remained at 15 itself. But we've brought progressively down the rates, and that is why today it is at 11. We wanted to further come down, so particularly essential goods which common people use daily. If we can bring it down, we want to bring as many of them down to say 5%. Or where they are at 18, at least bring them to 12, and so on. I must thank the finance ministers who are in this group who've done intense work on it. Now, I also want to make sure the central government's inputs are given to them, so that as a result of that whole thing, the package which we can come up with will be useful, beneficial for the common citizen, and day-to-day goods are taxed minimum. That work will happen soon.
So you're saying 5%, 12%, 18% and 28% should be collapsed into only 3 rates?
No, I'm not saying 3, I'm not saying 2, I'm not saying 1. That is something which all of us will have to sit and work on. As it is, a lot of work has been done about reducing the tax on some items. So some which were at 12 can go to 5, some which were at 18 can come to 12. That work is already happening a lot. So it's now to sit and consolidate this and come out with a report.
By when?
I think it will be sooner, because it consumed a lot of time.
Before the end of this financial year? 31st March se pehle?
No, I'll need to hold a meeting also, no? Before I hold a council meeting.
So central government, you said, wants to give its recommendations. What are the central government recommendations?
No, I don't think I can sit and list it out. We may look at it item by item and so on. हमने किसी एलोकेशन, मनरेगा हो या अपने एजुकेशन और हेल्थ, आयुष्मान भारत इन जनरल, किसी का एलोकेशन कम नहीं हुआ. आप जाके एक बार देख लो. क्योंकि ऑपोजिशन बयानबाजी कर रहे हैं, उसमें से ये निकला, वो गलत है. बजट बनाने के समय बीई में जो अमाउंट देते हैं उसको बढ़ाते हैं जब डिमांड आता है मनरेगा के केस में. फिर दोबारा रिवाइज्ड एस्टिमेट के समय तक कितना उपयोग में आया उसको मन में रखते हुए आरई फिगर्स आते हैं. अगले साल आरई में कितना उपयोग हुआ है उसको बेसिस में रखते हुए बीई बनाते हैं। बीई टू बीई कंपेयर करके नहीं, उस बीई में ज्यादा था, इस बीई में कम है, नहीं। जब डिमांड ड्रिवन प्रोग्राम्स, मनरेगा डिमांड ड्रिवन है, अगर डिमांड ज्यादा होते आए तो हमारी स्टेज तक, आपको याद दिलाना चाहती हूं, कोविड के समय मनरेगा में खर्च 1,20,000 तक पहुंचा। हमने रोका क्या? जब डिमांड आता है हम देते जा रहे हैं। इसको हर साल उठाना, हर साल जवाब मांगना, हर साल हम भी दे रहे हैं जवाब, मगर सच्चाई तो वही है, जैसे डिमांड आता है वैसे हम पेमेंट करते जाते हैं।
तो आप कह रही हैं कि मनरेगा यानी लोगों के पास जॉब्स हैं इसलिए मनरेगा का डिमांड नहीं है?
नहीं, हर एक स्टेट में उनके अपने हालात अलग अलग सा है। कहीं एग्रीकल्चर एक्टिविटी ज्यादा जब होता है मनरेगा में डिमांड नहीं होता। टेक्निकली वो इंटेंट, कानून का इंटेंट भी वही था मनरेगा का। एग्रीकल्चरल एक्टिविटीज जब हाई में रहता उस समय मनरेगा एंटरटेन ही नहीं करते हैं डिस्ट्रिक्ट में। एग्रीकल्चरल सीजन होने के बाद उस फार्म वर्कर का कोई जॉब नहीं मिलता, उस समय 100 डेज का अश्योरेंस के साथ मनरेगा। अभी पूरे साल का आप बोल रही हो। सो बहुत सारे इसमें विषय है। सम स्टेट्स आर डूइंग इट इन वन वे, सम अदर स्टेट्स आर डूइंग इट इन अनदर वे। फिर भी हम सबको हाँ करके we give the money allocation as and when it comes.
Alright, and that's the word coming in from none other than the finance minister of the country. Let's also take a very closer look then at the budget fine print, because capex was quite moderated in financial year 25. You did also have consumption that was on the back foot. We spoke to a slew of experts on the rationale then behind capex and the government's bid to increase consumption. Let's take a look.
I would expect that capex should continue to grow faster than consumption, and private capex should also revive. Probably it is reviving also, it is growing faster than GDP as well. I think that should continue. But the multiples leave very little room for comfort in that space. Yes.
Global factor, the context of global factor and desire for higher rating, the glide path to fiscal consolidation was very much kept in mind. I, for one, would have liked slightly higher fiscal deficit, because along with consumption, we also need an investment boost, because that investment cycle is still not really where it needs to be. I think the result of higher spending on GST collection and even corporate profits, who will see now this consumption coming back, and therefore how they want to invest in the economy, etc. So if you look at direct tax, indirect tax all put together, I don't see that very aggressive.
Given roughly 1 lakh crore rupees in the hands of consumer, and mind you, this 1 lakh crore rupees is like equity in the hands of consumer, which will get further leveraged. Someone will buy a house, so EMIs he will be able to afford more, or someone will do some kind of a capex on his own. So this roughly 1 lakh crore rupees of tax relief which has come, this is really big. If you dwell deeper and if you include the grants which are being given to state government, which is also directly indirectly a capex item only, but it is done by the state government, then the overall number comes to 16% growth in capital expenditure.
I think the underlying design was that there's no scope to spend more on capex. And then how do you keep the spending up without distorting the economy? Might as well give it back to the people who are paying more taxes. I think that's the approach here that has been taken. The likelihood is that incremental consumption will be more discretionary than staple. So not more biscuits. That's more, the 60th, 70th, 50th percentile, 40th percentile, not 90th percentile. So the likelihood of this being spent on discretionary items, the likelihood that some amount gets saved is also very high.
14.6 trillion rupees on capex, which is a run rate of almost 97,000 crores a month versus an average spending of 75,000 crores that they've done in the first 9 months of this year, which means it's not a 10% hike. It's actually, in real terms, it will be a 29% increase, obviously provided they spend that money in the first 3 months and they spend the 11.2 for the next year.
Okay, back. You're watching Market Cafe on 80 now. Now let's get you some more key stocks to track today. Of course, the OMC's paints, lubricants, they would be in focus today. Brent is trading at a 1 month low. But then at the same time, Asian paints could see another set of weak quarter amid the heightened competition and weak demand scenario. Rabinder joins in to tell us what to expect from the numbers. Rabinder.
Well, Asian Paint is set to announce its Q3 FY25 number, and revenue is Street is expecting a revenue at rupees 8,903 crore, and PAT is expecting around 1,144 crore, which is down 22% year-on-year basis, and margin can be seen at around 18%. So overall, and weak set of number is expecting from Q3 FY25, and there are few factors which can be which are playing a role in the weak Q3 numbers. First is weak festive season. Weak consumer demand, especially in urban areas, and due to unfavorable base, margin would remain lower as compared to last year's, and volumes likely to remain subdued and sales to be declined. And there are few factors to watch out for: management commentary on demand outlook, competitive intensity, gross margin trend, and urban consumptions.
So the expectation when it comes to Asian paints, but even Titan is going to be in focus, and looks like another steady quarter is on the cards when it comes to Titan. You do have your studded jewelry business and Carrot Lane that are expected to clock robust growth, though in fact Snehi is standing by to tell us what exactly the street is then penciling in.
Well, absolutely. So here's what to watch out for when Titan declares its Q3 numbers. And on a standalone basis, revenue is expected to come in at 16,320 crores, which is an uptick of 26.4% on a year-on-year basis. Brokerages are penciling in an uptick of anywhere between 20 and 26% on the revenue front. So that's going to be an interesting number to watch out for. EBITDA is seen to grow at 13.3% at 1,651 crores. Net profit also, we're expecting a very small uptick of 2% on a standalone basis at 1,060 crores compared to 1,040 crores on a year-on-year basis. Margins, however, are expected to be slightly under pressure at 10.1% compared to 11.3%. Now, a big key expectation here is that a one-time inventory loss of anywhere between 200 and 270 crores is expected on the back of the reduction in custom duty that was announced in the interim budget earlier, but the overhang of that is expected to be present in this quarter as well. Now, as per the company's Q3 update, standalone jewelry sales grew 26%, studded jewelry is expected to grow by 21%, watches by 13%, eyewear anywhere between 17 and 18%. Tanishq on a like-to-like basis is expected to grow by 15% year-over-year, and Carrot Lane expected to post a robust growth at roughly 25%. The company is expected to have added 69 stores during the quarter, taking its total store count to 3,240. Some important factors to watch out for when the numbers do come out: commentary on how the festive season has been, how the wedding season has been, demand trends, profitability across segments, and competitive intensity and product mix. So watch out for Titan's numbers. But well, yes, on a standalone basis, revenue expected to go up anywhere between 20 and 26%.
Looks like on a sequential basis, looks like a good set of numbers, decent sort of numbers expected from Titan. Thanks very much, Snehi. But now let's get you news fatafat. Modi is likely to visit the US on February 13. This would be PM Modi's first visit to the US after President Donald Trump's historic comeback to the White House. PM Modi will be among a handful of foreign leaders to travel to US on a bilateral visit within weeks after the Trump administration came to power. Moving on, Japan's SoftBank Group will form a joint venture with the US tech giant OpenAI to offer advanced artificial intelligence to businesses. SoftBank would spend $3 billion annually to deploy OpenAI's solutions across its group companies. And back to Prime Minister Modi's news. PM Modi is set to respond to the motion of thanks in the Lok Sabha today as the ongoing budget session continues to witness intense debates and sharp exchanges between the government and the opposition over various issues, and leader of opposition Rahul Gandhi's assertions in the lower house.
Alright, then moving on to the political landscape. As the countdown to Delhi's D-Day then begins, Delhi police have raised concerns over possible attempts at electoral malpractice, leading authorities then to intensify vigilance. In fact, a traffic advisory has also been issued for today and tomorrow, urging citizens to plan their commutes in advance as the city gears up for increased security measures. Moving on, then, Telangana has scripted history after completing the entire process of caste survey in just 50 days, marking significant steps towards data-driven governance. In fact, the Assembly will be holding a special session today to discuss the census findings.
All right, with this, it's a wrap on this edition of Market Cafe, but looks like we are, the GIFT Nifty is indicating a good start. Let's see if you're able to retain the gains or not. But with this, it's a wrap on this edition of Market Cafe. Thanks so much for watching.